Well, hello there, and welcome to this webinar. And this is a webinar that's going to go through the short answer questions for the units TAE DEL 411, Facilitate Vocational Training, TAE DEL 412, Facilitate Workplace Learning, TAE DEL 416, Facilitate Learning for Young Vocational Learners there. So let's check it out. And as always, make sure that we fill out these cover sheets, dropping your name and dropping your signature and date signed there. Very, very important that you do that. If you don't, then your book will be sent back. So make sure that you definitely do that. Next one, learner name, start date, and you can leave the finish date until you come to submit your book there, but make sure you fill it out when you do. All right, so coming down, and let's check out these questions. As always, definitely have a pad, pen ready to go and ready to take notes, and feel free to listen to this video multiple times so that you capture what you need to get in order to answer the questions, right? So let's jump into it. So in a short paragraph, each explain the importance of compliance with regulations, right? So as part of working in an RTO, you must be a trainer that abides by the standards for RTOs 2015. And if the RTO doesn't, then it can essentially be shut down as a business there. So it's very important that all trainer assessors abide by those regulations and the organization abides by those regulations there as well. B, consistency of training delivery. Well, this is all about the fact that there's probably a need to create consistency across delivery approach and making sure that all trainers are delivering at a high level and making sure that all trainers approach training and even assessing in a similar format so that all learners have a very similar experience or a good quality consistent experience in their journey with the RTO there. All right, meeting learner needs. Well, this is all about understanding that policies and procedures are in place so that learners' needs are met, and this can be done, in many, many different ways. And there's expectations for standards for RTOs that that stipulate how learners' needs are identified and that the RTO has support structures in place or support mechanisms for learners if they are struggling or needing extra support there. All right. And whenever a learner enrolls, ideally extra needs are identified and a plan is put together in order to meet those needs. Continuous improvement. Well, as an RTO, it needs to always demonstrate how it is continually improving and it is documenting those changes that it makes to its program. Question 2, explain why trainers assessors must use training assessment strategies. Okay. So a training assessment strategy is an overall document that will lay out how a qualification is to be delivered. And it is an overarching document. And as a trainer assessor, you may come across it, but basically it shows how the qualification that you are delivering aligns to the training package there. So you will be able to look at it and see what units of competency are being delivered, when they're being delivered, by whom, and what resources are required then. Okay. Question 3, explain why training assessors must keep accurate and safe records. Well, fairly self-explanatory there because there's multiple people that are involved. So records need to be accurate. Learners' details are going to be on those records. Records need to be safe so that everybody can access them whenever they need them. And also, they're backed up maybe on the cloud server or, they're held in a locked cabinet, so to speak. But they are reflecting what is happening for the learner. They are assessment results, attendance records, all that kind of relevant information there. Question 4, explain why training assessors must provide appropriate learner support. Well, this must be done because it's part of the standards for RTOs. And it's also the fact that all learners will have different needs, and you as a trainer and assessor, you need to support learners through their journey, whether it's in the workshops or between workshops, or answering inquiries that they may have, and supporting them in the learning process as they undertake a unit of competency or qualification with you there. All right, question 5. Explain why it's important for trainer assessors to undertake professional development. Provide an example of professional development activity. All right. So it's important because it's a requirement as a trainer assessor to do it as part of the standards for RTOs. And this could be things like attending a workshop. It could be attending a webinar. It could be attending or reading through a journal article, or reading through a blog article, or even going to a networking event, all right, or even attending a validation session. All of those would be considered a professional development activity there. All right. Question 6, explain why it's important for trainer assessors to refer to organizational behavior management, risk identification, and control policy and procedures there. All right. So this could be things like, setting the ground rules and making sure they know what to do if a learner demonstrates misbehavior in a training room. And also knows what to do in the case of a hazard or a risk, or dealing with emergencies there. All right. So question 7, explain the meaning of the following unit of competency terms. So application. So what you may want to do is go to Google and type in core components or components of a unit of competency there. All right. And when you do, it's going to have a definition or explanation of each of these things here. But application, basically this describes how the unit can be applied and what context or situations the unit can be applied in. All right. Elements and performance criteria. Well, these talk about the steps to do a task, or the expectations on how to do a task. So typically when you open up a unit of competency, it will have 2 or 3 elements, or maybe 4 elements. And then the performance criteria is the steps on how to do the task, or the expectations on doing the task, so to speak there. All right. But if you go to Google and type in elements performance criteria, question mark, it'll give you lots of explanation around that. Performance evidence. Well, this will tell us what physical evidence we must gather from a candidate, or what we must watch a candidate actually perform in order to be competent for the unit then. Knowledge evidence from the unit is the knowledge that the candidate must demonstrate as they are doing the task or completing the unit. All right. Knowledge evidence is typically assessed via a written test or a verbal interview. Assessment conditions are the conditions under which the assessment must take place, whether it's simulated, whether it's real world, and what qualifications that the assessor may have, maybe what equipment must be available for the assessment as well there. All right. Question 8, explain what foundation skills are and their importance. Well, foundation skills are basically the survival skills for basic communication and operating in a workplace. So you can have things like reading, writing, oral communication, working with others, planning, numeracy. All those kind of things would fall into the category of foundation skills. And you will find that every unit of competency is going to list those foundation skills. And basically, they are the underpinning and underlying basic communication skills that someone would need in order to complete that unit of competency there. Question 9, explain what the dimensions of competency are in relation to units of competency and how they guide training practices. So dimensions of competency are, as we've talked about in other videos, task skills, task management skills, contingency management skills, and job role or environment. And all of those 4 things need to be trained and assessed when you are training and assessing a unit of competency. And if you want to find out more, head to Google and type in dimensions of competency, question mark, and see what comes up there. Right? But there have been other lectures done on that topic there, so it should be quite familiar for you. Question 10. Apply the dimensions of competency listed below to the training session example. All right, so Arnie is a qualified cookery trainer and assessor and has been asked to conduct a training session with a group of learners that have never used a toasted sandwich maker, hot or sandwich press before and are learning how to make a toasted sandwich. Okay. After being given her cohort specifics, she sets out to plan training session in small tasks that ensure the activities over the whole training, over the whole session incorporate the dimensions of competency. This is Arnie's session plan on how she will get the group to learn how to make a toasted sandwich. Training session, make a toasted sandwich in a toasted style. Learning objectives, learners will be able to identify, locate, and set up correct size toasted sandwich maker in the kitchen. Learners will be able to select the ingredients for a toasted sandwich our customer has ordered. Learners will be able to make the ordered toasted sandwich in the toasted toasted sandwich maker. All right. So task skill. And if we break this down, so task activity, so maybe we demonstrate how to identify, locate, and set up the toasted sandwich maker. All right, great. So the task would be observe the learners as they identify, or, find it and set up the toasted sandwich maker. All right, so all about finding it, setting it up, and using it there. All right. Task management skill activity, provide the learners with a choice of ingredients. All right, and get the learners to actually pick it out. Observe then, the task would be observe learners as they select the ingredients and add them to the toasted sandwich maker or the toasted sandwich, so to speak. All right. Contingency management is talk about common happen with the setup and the preparation and the cooking process. Task, make sure that the learners don't make those errors, and also maybe talk about what to do in the case of an emergency or case of issues with the cord or issues with the ingredients there and how to handle those situations there. Job role or environment is going to be just basically discussing the importance of selecting the correct toasted sandwich makeup, depending on what coffee shop you work in, talking about different ingredients that could be incorporated, and doing this in various environments. What do you do if you don't have access to those particular ingredients? And making maybe some ideas around organic versus non-organic ingredients there. Task, ask learners to provide examples of when they need to select different size toasted sandwich makers and what they would do if they ran out of an ingredient, so to speak. All right, and we also have a final one, which is transfer skills. And you may come across this in the dimensions of competency. It can be 4 dimensions of competency, or there can be a 5th one added into transferable skills there. So activity, we could provide learners with different types of toasted sandwich makers and various ingredients. And then last of all, we got for the task, we could observe learners as they select different types of toasted sandwich makers and ingredients, and we could give them lots of variety of toasted sandwich makers to choose from. And maybe we give them a task so that they could do some research around the best maker on the market at the moment there. All right. Question 11, list and describe 2 learning theories. So this could be things like behaviorist learning theory, cognitivism, constructivism, discovery learning, experiential learning. All right. So if you go to Google and type in learning theories, question mark, you're going to find an abundance of information around learning theories, and you'll be able to find one and then provide a bit of an explanation of each of the 2 there. All right. So coming down, we got question 12 here. And question 12, it says, list and describe 3 principles of adult learning. So we've got 3 boxes here. So you could do, 1 per box. And basically go to Google and type in adult learning principles, question mark, see what comes up. And you will find things like, learners need to know the why they're learning something. There's a learner self-concept. There's learner life experience. There's a readiness to learn. And there's a few other learning principles for adults there that you'll be able to find on Google. All right. Question 13. All right, so studying is preparing to deliver workplace training to a group of 10 learners about a new content management system. He wants to make sure that the experience is positive for each learner and that each person can absorb the content in a way that meets their preferred learner style. He would like to learn about the demographics and characteristics of the learner group. Identify 5 ways that Sunny can learn about this group in general. All right. So he could read the enrollment forms. He could review any language literacy and numeracy assessments that have been done. He could access resumes and maybe position descriptions of the learners. He could talk to the learners prior to the training. He could get them to do a learner styles questionnaire for sure. So then we got B, explain how study can find out cultural, social health, and neurodiversity characteristics about each learner. All right. Well, this one, you may want to, as we said, weave it into an interview with the candidate or get them to fill out a pre-enrollment questionnaire. That's a great way to do it. Or you could speak to their supervisor and see if there is anything noteworthy to find out there. All right. Question C, list 2 ways study can determine the preferred learning styles of the 10 learners. All right. So this could be getting them to fill out a questionnaire. It could also be getting them to share that via a verbal interview there as well that you conduct with the learners. Next, Sunny discovers that 4 people in the group prefer to learn by being hands-on. These 3 learners absorb content better by reading and writing, and 3 other learners are a combination of hands-on and visual, but also aren't too fussed if they have to read content as well. All right. So based on the fact that this group will be learning how to use a computerized system, list at least 4 different ways Sunny could teach the group to ensure each person gets the most out of their training and can use the system confidently. Think about ways that Sunny could present information for this face-to-face delivery, as well as different activities the group could do. All right. Well, quite a bit there. So you may want to think about having printed resources that the learners could read. All right. You may want to have handouts that step people through the major steps. You may want to have certainly some quizzes. You may want to have activity sessions where people get to play in the system and try it out. You may want to have online videos and tutorials for people to watch. You may want to have PowerPoint presentations with screenshots. You may want to have simulated scenarios and situations for people to practice using the system. You may want to use the whiteboard. You may want to use flip charts. All right. So all of those things will certainly support the delivery of that information for those various types of learners there. All right. Question 14, name and explain the 4 standard steps in any effective risk assessment process. Well, you can certainly fill that out with the 4 boxes that we've got there, but highly recommend just head to Google and type in risk assessment process, ? See what comes up. But generally, the most common ways are inspection of the area, using a hazard form, identify the hazards, eliminate the risk and substitute as appropriate, and record any changes that are made to the environment and those kind of things there. All right. Question 15. Explain the hierarchy of controls. Make note of PPE and WHS policies. So this one, very similar. Go to Google and type in hierarchy of control and drop in some examples if you can think of any examples from your workplace there as well. Right? You may even want to draw the hierarchy of control. That could be a great approach there. But as you would all know, we've got some elimination, substitution, engineering, administration, and PPE. All right, very common terminology to a lot of people there. All right. So we have question 16. What WHS legislation and regulation covers workplaces in your state? Well, you've got the Workplace Health and Safety Regulation and Model Act, and you've also got the one that may be relevant for your state there as well. And you want to drop in what year it came into play. All right. Question 17. What is most important to know about current work procedures and routines when planning training in the workplace? Well, this could be things like, when does it start? When does it stop? Where will it take place? And making sure that the content is relevant to the workplace and relevant to the policies and procedures that are in place for that workplace, so to speak. Question 18, what is a learning pathway? Well, a learning pathway basically lays out the milestones for a learner, what will be achieved, where it will take place, how it will take place, the activities, and maybe dates for that learning to take place as well. And it's often used specifically for one learner at a time. Question 19, give an example of a contextual requirement that maybe impact upon work-based training. All right. Well, this could be apprenticeships or traineeships. And this could also be things like when can someone be trained, when can't they be trained, and the kind of training that they can undertake as well. All right. And paid work, unpaid work, and all of that. All right. So question 20, from whom may you need to obtain agreement when seeking to implement a work-based learning program? Well, you probably need to get permission from a supervisor or from the owner of a business and any kind of person that's involved in the, work day-to-day activities of that employee. So also human resources and maybe even the trainee themselves, right? Okay. So question 21, why is it important to monitor supervisor arrangements for your learners? Well, it's important to do that so that you see if somebody is progressing or not, and also to make sure that you're having regular contact time with the learner so that they actually feel like someone cares about them and their progress is being monitored and supported there. All right. Question 22, what 5 things may you need to check in preparation for your session? Well, you probably need to check the equipment. You probably need to check the materials that you need, the printed materials. You probably need the venue. You probably need the technology, whatever technology you're going to require. You need to check the who the learners are and make sure that they're aware of the session. You need to maybe have an attendance form ready to go, feedback forms available to hand out at the end of the session, all those kind of things there. And again, make sure that the room is available. All right, 23, why is closure important in a training mentoring situation there? Well, basically, it sums up the key points and it helps people know that, okay, this is the end of our training relationship, so to speak, and it makes sure that somebody feels complete and achievements are recognized. Question 24, list 3 ways in which you can gain feedback from your learners. Well, this can be through informal conversations. It can be through online forms. It can be through written forms, and it can be through anonymous surveys as well there. Right? And certainly observation in the training room is going to give you feedback as well as to how they are enjoying your training. Question 25, why and how, in what format, and for how long, are records of your learners' performance and achievement retained? All right. Well, records of performance kept for generally 6 months, so printed copies, 6 months. Records of qualifications issued is going to be for 30 years. and that's going to be backed up on a server. So you need to keep records of students, I guess, completed assessments for 6 months, and then the actual list of people that you've issued qualifications to, that is for 30 years. All right. So let's come down to question 26 here. When making recommendations, changes relating to workplace pathway, how would you record these and who would you present them to? Well, you'd probably make them in written form or typed form, and you would present them to the RTO manager or relevant training supervisor or industry supervisor there. So that, folks, is the end of that section there. And what you're going to do, you're going to drop in your learner name. So you're going to sign it and then drop the date in there as well. All right. So let's now head to the next section, which is the written questions for TAEDEL412. All right. So let's check out question 1 and let's jump into it. All right. So we've got to identify 3 different systems or processes an organization could use to identify their workplace skill development needs. All right. And this could be things like, all right, key performance indicators, employee assessments, performance benchmarks, all right, training and learner needs analysis or training needs analysis, right? So just write a couple of those in there and just explain them as appropriate. All right, so employee assessments, observations in the workplace, performance benchmarks, competency frameworks, training needs analysis there. All right. Question 2, what are the learning objectives in a workplace learning plan? So we've got things like, reaching the performance indicators or setting out learning benchmarks, or what are the, many things or many skills that someone needs to develop in order to be able to reach a performance standard there. And that would be listed in the workplace learning plan. B, where learning objectives are not already defined, how can you go about determining what they are? All right. So this could be things like setting SMART goals, or it could be, having conversations with the trainee or the mentee and asking them, where are they struggling? What do they need support in? What would they love to be able to do? All right. Where learning objectives are not already defined, how can you go about determining what they are? All right. And that is very similar to the above question there. And as we've said, it's basically setting learning objectives in consultation with the mentee. All right. So you can have a very similar to answer to what's just above there in B. Identify 3 safety arrangements that could be detailed in a workplace learning plan. So this could be things like PPE. It could be ergonomics, health and first aid. It could be what documents will be included, and it could be hazard and risk assessments. It could be how to wear PPE, when it is required, those kind of things there. All right. Question 3, identify 3 examples of organization procedures that would relate to facilitating learning in the workplace. All right. So this could be, professional development for company employees, mentoring and coaching programs, conducting training needs analysis. It could be work-based learning programs. All those kind of things are going to definitely extract the needs of the employees there. All right. Question 4, identify 3 federal acts of legislation that relate to facilitating learning in the workplace. All right. Well, these could be things like Fair Work Act, Privacy Act, Family Law Act, WHS Safety Act 2011, all right? Human Rights Act. All right. All of those things will definitely come into play when delivering learning in the workplace or training in the workplace. All right. For each act, identify an example of a workplace procedure that would be in place as a result of the act. So we've got 3, and then come down here, list those so saying 3, and then drop in something that would relate to that. So, for example, if it was in relation to let's say WHS, then there could be a procedure or policy around PPE being worn. All right. If it was the Anti-Discrimination Act, it could be things like material and language used is non-discriminatory. Those kind of things there. All right. Question 5 here, it says, how a workplace example of how the dimensions of competency play their part in guiding workplace-based learning practice. Include all the dimensions of competency in your answer. So as we've talked about in previous webinars, we've got task skills, task management skills, job role or environment, and contingency management skills. Those ones, core ones that we're looking for there. And we also have transferable skills, so you can include that one there as well. And basically, task skill, as we know, someone is learning a task on the job, and maybe it is something like making a cup of coffee. All right, task management skills, knowing what to do when something is happening while making that cup of coffee, serving a customer, and all of that. Job role environment, being able to use different kinds of coffee machines. And then we go job role is being able to also use coffee machines in different environments. Contingency management skills, knowing what to do if the coffee machine breaks down. Transferable skills, knowing how to make a good quality cup of coffee, maybe on at a coffee shop or maybe on a cruise ship, or in different countries, for sure. All right, question 6. Describe the differences between apprenticeships and traineeships as a workplace training pathway. All right, so you can definitely Google that and, Google apprenticeship versus traineeship and see what the differences are. And you'll be able to find lots of information. Some are paid, some are not, some are supported by the government, others are not there. So B, it says identify an example of an apprenticeship qualification. Well, you can have things like certificate 3 in baking, certificate 3 in hair, diploma of agriculture. All right. You can have certificate 4 in plumbing and services. You can have certificate 3 in carpentry. Right? All of those would be great responses. C, identify an example of a traineeship. Well, traineeship, on the other hand, you can have Cert 3 in individual services. Individual support. Cert 4 in information technology. Cert 3 in business. That's a very big one. Cert 3 in hospitality there. Okay. Cool. So question 7, identify 3 examples of workplace stakeholders that can be involved in planning for and supporting workplace training. Well, these could be the learners, a manager, the workplace supervisors, workplace trainers and assessors, of course, health and safety officers, human resource staff. For each stakeholder named, identify an example of what information they could provide upon engagement. Well, up here we have 3, so we're going to drop in 3 down here. So we've got the learners. Well, they can provide information about what they're struggling with, what the learning objectives are, what the requirements are, and what they need to have available for them. Supervisors and managers can provide information about current job skill requirements and any past challenges. Workplace training assessors may have awareness around what's currently being trained, what has been trained, and all of those things. WHS, people may be able to, workplace health and safety officers would provide information around the safety, PPE, and policy and procedures. And human resources may provide information about what past training has been provided and monitoring progress and all of those things there, maybe even motivation levels of the learners. C, identify 3 examples of how you could communicate with these stakeholders to obtain and share information through your training process. Well, you could have phone calls, you can have informal conversations, meetings, emails, surveys, questionnaires, copies of updated training plans, or that could be used to share that information there. All right, question 8, identify 2 different strategies and processes for identifying foundation skill levels and needs of learners there. All right, well, you could certainly get the learners to do a pre-training questionnaire. You could have an interview with the learners. You could do skills assessment testing before the training, and you could also get the learners to go online and do some foundation skills testing with, organizations that specialize in that as well there. B, identify the 3 current authorised foundation skills frameworks in Australia. Well, we have the Australian Core Skills Framework, we have the Digital Literacy Skills Framework, and we have the Core Skills for Work Developmental Framework then, all right, CSFW. Okay. Next one is briefly explain how the frameworks are used to determine a learner's numerical levels of performance in each of the skill areas. All right. So you would probably want to drop each of those names into Google, pop a question mark, and then see what comes up and read up a little bit about each of the frameworks. But just to remind you what those frameworks were, up here the frameworks were Australian Core Skills Framework, Digital Literacy Framework, and then the Core Skills for Work Developmental Framework there. So ACSF, Digital Literacy Skills Framework, and then the Core Skills for Work Framework there. All right. So if you Google each of those, you should be able to find out a bit of an explanation about that. All right, next, briefly explain how the frameworks are used to determine the numerical levels of difficulty and, yeah. All right, cool. So it looks like that question is repeated there, and that is okay. So you can maybe just do a copy and paste and repeat your answer there. All right. Cool. Maybe that's correct. Briefly explain how the frameworks, yep, numerical levels. Okay. Briefly explain how the frameworks are used to determine the numerical levels of difficulty against identified skills in a training program. Yep. So very similar. You'll be able to find that answer from looking up those frameworks in Google there. E, identify 2 different strategies for organizing foundational skills for learners. All right. Well, this can be done internally. So you can certainly have an internal LN support person that's going to maybe with the learners, in consultation with the learner, develop a plan to support their foundation skills, their LLN. Or you can certainly send the individual off to an external specialist who can provide that support there as well. All right. So coming down, we got question 9. Identify 3 reasons that some learners may require additional support in work-based learning. All right. Well, these could be things like language barriers. All right. Next could be learning style differences. Maybe it's physical, mental, or emotional challenges. Maybe it's lack of prior knowledge or experience in the area. Maybe it's confidence or motivation issues there as well. All right. So next we got B, identify 3 cognitive or learning disabilities that would require the learner to receive additional support or resources there. So this could be things like dyslexia. It could be things like ADHD. It could be things like anxiety. It could be things like hearing impairment, visual impairment, those kind of things. All right. Next, we have identify 3 examples of support strategies can be introduced for different types of learning needs. All right. So this could be things like assistive technology. It could be explicit instruction. It could be providing subtitles on videos. It could be, bringing in extra support specialists to support in particular areas there. All right. So you can certainly Google that, and you can come up with support strategies for, if you've mentioned dyslexia, you could go to Google and type in support strategy dyslexia. See what comes up. Question 10 here, folks. We have to each of the following learning theories. I briefly outlined how this is applied to learning in the workplace. So adult learning theory, You can certainly go to Google, type in adult learning theory, question mark, see what comes up, and just drop in a couple of sentences around that. Experiential learning, same deal. Go to Google and type in experiential learning, question mark, see what comes up, and drop in an explanation there. Social learning theory, same deal. Cognitive load theory, same deal. And then the next one, we've got self-determination theory there as well. Question 11, identify 3 adult learning principles, and to each principle, briefly outline the benefit of applying this in the workplace learning. So we have we've got 1, 2, and 3. So you can pick one of the examples that we've just mentioned up here above. So you've got cognitive learning, for example, and then you can drop in how that is going to support learning in the workplace, or how that is going to benefit to the program. So go to Google, type in the name of the learning theory there, and then think of an example of how you can incorporate that there. So we're going to come down and let's check out question 12 here. It says, in the table provided, outline strategies used for each of the facilitation techniques, followed by the benefits of this technique or in this technique. So we have demonstration, instruction, we've got questioning, and we've got coaching and supervised practice there. All right. So you may want to think about, go to Google and typing demonstration in training or instruction in training, and getting a bit of a clear understanding of each of the techniques there. And by demonstration, it certainly is great for people to visually see what's going on. And the benefit of this training, it certainly helps for the hands-on learners, and it visually demonstrates what the expectations are in the task. Instruction, basically it's talking, and it's putting things on the whiteboard, but it's also talking people through things. And it provides structured explanation and structured guidance, and it caters well to learners who prefer structured and auditory learning experiences there. Questioning, it's great to stimulate thoughts in the learner group there, and it stimulates critical thinking there as well. And useful for reflective learners, and allows people to share their own knowledge and prior experience there. Coaching, well, it involves certainly, asking great questions to the audience, and is more one-on-one in nature. And it really gets learners to think differently, think around issues, think around problems, and helps the learners become independent themselves. All right, supervised practice is about getting people to do hands-on tasks or hands-on activities. And then the benefit of that is the learners actually, discover the policy, the procedure in action, and they get real-time feedback from the trainer and real-time feedback from the experience there. Okay, so coming down, question 13, we have identified 3 different types of workplace constraints that could affect training being conducted. All right, so this could be things like a lack of resources. It could be the weather. It could be technology not functioning, or it could be lack of support from the other departments. It could be inappropriate timeframes. There's lots of things going on there. Identify 3 different types of workplace distractions that can impact on training being undertaken. All right, so this could be staff interruptions, busy periods, telephones ringing, children in the work environment, fire drills, COVID lockdowns, all those kind of things, right? So coming down, C, identify 3 examples of being proactive in managing potential for unforeseen constraints or foreseen constraints and distractions in the workplace there. So that could be scheduling training around time when things may be happening. It could be discussing those ideal timeframes. It could be finding out what is the normal routine process for different things. It could be what else? It could be getting buy-in from all departments. All right. Question 14, it says, explain the importance of trainers being responsible for providing appropriate supervision and support when it comes to safety in the workplace. So this could be things like making sure that the trainer is monitoring what's going on and having a visibility over the risks and the hazard in the room, providing appropriate PPE, and making sure that safety is one of the biggest concerns or priorities in the training environment. What WHS, so next one, B, what WHS responsibilities do the learners hold during workplace-based learning there? So that is all about wearing PPE, showing duty of care to other people, following safety instructions, and making sure that they're not creating undue danger for other people there. All right. Question 15, identify 3 different ways you can give learner feedback on their work-based training performance. Well, this could be done through peer assessments, manager evaluations, encouraging learners to do self-reflection, feedback directly from you verbally, or it could be in a written form as well then. All right. B, identify 2 different ways that you can get feedback on your own performance as a work-based trainer. Well, this could be, again, using online surveys, or it could be paper-based surveys, or it could be just a one-on-one interview with the learner as well. Cool. All right. So C, we've got describe the benefits of undertaking regular self-reflection as a mode to improve your training facilitation. Well, this will help you identify what's going well, what needs changing, and it helps you think outside the box a little bit, notice where instructions are landing, not landing, and it will help you refine your instructions that you give as well, and it'll help you maybe also identify where things need to be updated as well, because maybe equipment's changed or maybe policy and procedures have changed as well, and you need to factor that in there. Okay, so that is good. Let's go there. All right, so we'll come down and TAEDEL412 questions are now up to there. So you go ahead, drop in your signature and drop in the date. Signature and date, don't forget to do that. All right, so now let's move on to the next unit, which is the TAEDEL416, facilitate learning for young vocational learners. Right. And probably at this point, you would be looking to break up this webinar and be looking to get each of these sections complete and then slowly move through it. All right. And as we said at the beginning, you probably want to watch this webinar quite a few times just to be complete on each of the sections here. All right, so question 1 here, it says list 4 different learning theories and for each provide an example of learner-centered practice relevant to working with young vocational learners, right? So earlier above, we've got, we've already mentioned a couple of learning theories, and you want to look at then how is that going to be relevant to younger learners, so to speak. So we've got things like constructivism, experiential learning. We've got Vygotsky's zone of proximal development. We've got andragogy. We've got learner-centered practice, problem solving, problem-based learning. We've got Gardner's theory of multiple intelligence. We've got motivation theory, technology integration. So there's a lot of ones that you can think about and draw upon there, and then think about how would you apply those if you were dealing with younger learners, so to speak, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18-year-olds. Cool. So coming down, we got question 2. Provide one example with a brief explanation of how completing a VET qualification will differ to what younger learners have experienced in traditional schooling. Great question here. And this could be things like, in the VET sector, completing a unit of competency is competent versus not yet competent. But a learner that's going through school, that it's going to be different. It's going to be A plus, B minus. It's more of a performance grading system. So that's going to be different. Also, Younger learners in the vet sector will be given more responsibility, and they will be expected to, perform tasks with self-initiative there. Attendance in class does not necessarily count for any credit towards the completion of a unit of competency there. Next, provide one example with a brief explanation of how different cultural backgrounds of young learners can impact learning needs there. So this can be things like, all right, do they come from an Asian background or a Middle Eastern background or Indigenous background? And in that case, how's that going to impact how they view the training that they're about to undertake? And are other languages required to be supported? Is prayer time needed to be factored in? Right? Will PPE be required, and what kind of impact will that have? Next, E, explain how young learners' core skill levels are assessed to determine if they have any needs in any of the foundation skills areas or language literacy, numeracy, and digital literacy there. So similar to adults, they probably want to complete a numeracy assessment prior to enrollment and also digital literacy skills checked as well. All right. And by checking that, we are going to make sure that they can perform to the required level, and they're going to be good to go through the course now. All right. So next one, provide an example of physical support needed for a younger learner that will require consideration in vet course planning for that learner. All right. So that could be something like maybe someone's in a wheelchair. All right. Maybe someone's got hearing impairment. Maybe someone has ADHD and maybe requires frequent breaks, or maybe someone has recently had an accident and they would require extra, support to stand up, move around, or deal with the pain, so to speak. Identify 3 different ways you can provide emotional support in line with the needs of younger learners. All right. Well, this could be something like providing avenues for them to access support. It could be providing feedback in a way that is supportive and constructive at the same time, and encouraging the learners to acknowledge their own wins and their own milestones in the training that they are undertaking. Question 3. Excuse me. Identify and describe at least 3 different types of structured learning activities used within younger learners in the vet sector. So this could be online self-paced content. It could be theoretical lessons, such as in a classroom, using PowerPoint, whiteboard, flip charts. It could be watching videos. It could be group activities. It could be workplace learning, where they actually go and complete workplace tasks. It could be working in a family business. It could be problem solving, case studies, all of those things. Question 4. When developing learning plans and session plans for young learners, explain for each of the following criteria to be included in the plan, the importance of it and what information it provides for younger learners. Activities to be undertaken. Well, that's going to tell the reader what activities will be undertaken, how long for, and maybe some ways to make it even more engaging for younger learners, right? Tools and equipment are needed. Well, it's going to mention the PPE. It's going to be mentioning what equipment is required. Maybe it's a coffee machine. Maybe it's tools and equipment that would be required on a construction site, whatever that. It could be what learners need to bring to class, so to speak. Monitoring processes. Right? So this could be things like how will the learners receive feedback, and how will they be informed about their progress, and what kind of information will be gathered throughout the training delivery there. Question 5, to each of the following, provide an example of how the facilitation practice can be effective when working with young learners. So face-to-face, online, blended. All right, so face-to-face, it's all about giving the learners opportunities to actually practice the tasks, knowing that there will be interaction with an actual assessor or with an actual trainer there. So, how are you going to provide the information. That may be through, PowerPoint presentations, and various tools that you use. Online, well, this can be real time, or it can be a recorded online session there, and it may be using Zoom, or it may be using Teams, whatever is available for the learner there. And you want to make sure that if it's online, you still want to create engagement activities and quizzes and different things that they can use to make it fun. All right, so blended is basically a combination of face-to-face and online, and that is just using the attributes of both and doing a combination of both there, and having some sessions online, having some sessions face-to-face there. Question 6, it says, during the facilitation of learning with younger learners, provide indicators of how you would know they are engaged, motivated, and interacting as expected there. Well, you could certainly use the chat box. You could certainly see if learners are joining in the group tasks quickly, see how actively they contribute to pair work or to games or to case studies, see if they turn up to class on time, all those kind of things there. B, identify 2 different behaviour management strategies to manage a challenging situation with younger learners, right? Well, you can certainly speak to the learners about expectations. You can have code of conduct. You could have ways that you're going to escalate the matter to colleagues or supervisors or people in charge of those younger learners. Then provide an example of what a safe and inclusive learning environment would be for a group of younger learners there. Well, don't tolerate racism or bullying. Make sure everyone feels included. Make sure everyone feels part of the training process, and make sure all cultural and personal needs are acknowledged and supported there. Okay. Question 7 here. It says, explain briefly the purpose of meeting and maintaining child-safe principles in the workplace. That is all about, essentially, let's just come to it, is making sure that all trainers who interact with children have done a safe work check, or they have a blue card, or whatever the required qualification is, or the license is to working with children, and making sure there's policies and procedures around working with children and creating emotional well-being and safety for the environment there. All right. B, working with younger learners, specifically under the age of 18, requires permission to do so. Explain the process of obtaining this permission. So again, this would be for applying for a blue card, or whatever the check or permit may be, depending on what your state you're in. And there is an application fee that is part of that there. C, explain a legislative requirement for trainers and assessors who wish to commence training in the VET, and do not hold themselves a training and assessment qualification there. Okay, so essentially, well, a trainer assessor can only deliver and can only train and assess if they've got the TAE. All right, so you really want to make sure that if you're working with young people and you are delivering a national qualification, you do have the TAE 22 there. All right. Question 8, to each of the following areas, provide an example of appropriate practices and methods must be used to promote a safe and inclusive learning environment for younger learners there. It's very similar to the previous question that we've just had above, but establishing strategies and protocols for inclusive and respectful peer interaction and support. Well, this could be through a list of rules and different codes of conduct, and setting the expectations in the beginning there. All right. Using appropriate and inclusive language. Well, definitely encouraging all the participants to do that, and holding people accountable when they don't, and also talking about the consequences when they don't. Actions that support learner welfare. All right, making sure everyone feels inclusive, making sure that you check in with the learners, making sure they feel safe, and all of that there. All right, next, those reflected in applicable state, territory, and Commonwealth legislation or child safety standards. All right, this is about making sure, again, If there is any reportable incidents, the incidents are reported, making sure that all trained assessors have the appropriate qualifications to work with young people there. Question 9, identify 3 cues that may reflect a younger learner is having difficulty with learning and learning relationships. To each cue that you identify, provide strategy to support that learner. All right, so a cue could be something like not engaging in activities and tasks. All right, another one could be showing signs of confusion. All right, another one could be quickly losing interest. Another one could be not handing in assessment. Another one could be not turning up to class, right? So just have a think about each of those and then think about what's one way that you are going to support a person or a learner if they were demonstrating those things there. All right. Now, question 10, list 2 different methods a training organization can use in their process to evaluate the success of the learning programs. All right. So this could be things like looking at how quickly are things being submitted, and what is the competency completion rate, what's the feedback, do trainers and assessors complete the required paperwork on time and in the right ways, and all, let's see, and also feedback from the learners there as well. All right. So then we've got B, explain how a training organisation can finalise and document the effectiveness of the learning relationship with younger learners. Very similar, write up reports, look at quality indicators, look at competency completion, and all of those things there. All right. So that should effectively deal with all the short answer questions there for dealing with younger learners in that unit of competency. So go ahead, drop in your senior, drop in the date, and make sure that you do that when you are submitting your short answer questions for this unit of competency here, folks. Thanks so much for watching this one, and hopefully you got some value from it. As always, we remind you, watch a little bit, pause, start again, and attack each question by itself. And there are a few questions here, but through a slow, methodical pace, you will definitely get through everything required here. Thanks for watching, team, and we wish you the very best with all of your assessments going forward.